Hi there, guys. We want to extend a very warm welcome to our second ever guest to the podcast, Stan Lake. Stan is a writer, photographer, and author of A Toad in a Glass Jar, a collection of poems illustrating the intersection between the wonder of nature and the horrors of war. I already ordered my copy, so I'm so stoked to get that in the mail soon. We'll also link it where you can buy a copy in the show notes. Stan and I actually connected through social media by way of Dead Reckoning Collective, which is a veteran owned and operated publishing company that publishes the written work of military veterans. Stan, welcome to Nosedive. We're so happy to see you and connect and be able to share your story. Tell us a little bit about you, your background, your time in a straight edge band, which is kind of like how we connected in certain ways too, and just how you became an author, nature enthusiast, anything else you want to let the people know.
Right. Yeah. I heard your episode where you were talking about California sober and straight edge. I was like, oh, I can speak to some of that. So I grew up in North Carolina. I live currently near Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Yeah, I grew up in punk rock and hardcore bands. I did vocals for a lot of bands. So as far as writing goes, I am a writer. I publish a weekly column on Substack, and then I also have a poetry book that just came out, like you mentioned, through Dead Reckoning Collective. I've been writing most of my life, I'd say at least since middle school. Poetry, just like bad versions of poems back then, and they've gotten a little better, I hope. And then for years, I channeled that poems into lyrics in hardcore bands, and I grew up straight edge, which the joke now is I'm not straight edge, but like my tattoos
All
still
your
are.
tattoos
So
are straight edge? Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
have straight edge in like 1 inch letters on the inside of my arm.
Hey
Couldn't get it
Stan,
covered up.
hey Stan, to give people some context here that might not know, kind of me included, can you elaborate for us what straight edge means?
Yeah. So straight edge, like the history of it, from what I understand, was kind of birthed through the band Minor Threat, and they had a lyric that said, something to the effect of "I'm straight edge. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't fuck, and I don't fuck with those that do," or something like that. Uh, I can't remember the full lyric, but the band was Minor Threat, and it created this whole movement of like a counterculture movement where instead of drinking or and to be socially accepted, you went the whole other way. So I spent my adolescence, not drinking, not smoking, not doing drugs. I didn't even drink caffeine for like 4 or 5 years because it's technically a drug. Like I went pretty hardcore. And then it got to a point where it's like we started fighting people that were drinking.
Yeah, that's part of
So
it.
there was
Sure.
still like a lot of anger.
Hmm.
You had to get that stuff out one way or another. But like it lended to it in the hardcore movement, in the music scene, because the music is kind of violent, and it lends to that certain movements in the music where the beat will go halftime to a breakdown, people dance, and dancing looks like fighting, and it turned into this whole thing. I don't say that I'm straight edge anymore. The whole mantra behind that is if you're not now, you never were. Because if you broke edge, quote unquote, meaning you went back on your commitment, you could never claim it again. However, I do live a sober life. I don't drink or anything now. But there was a season when I came home from Iraq where I did drink quite a bit because I figured I'm going to die anyway. I might as well try alcohol for the first time in my life. And then I used
Hmm.
that to cope for like about a year after I came home. And I've gone through seasons um, where I've drank a lot. Never been a problem for me, but I would binge drink on the weekends and things like that. And then I would go 5, 6, 7 years where I don't drink a drop. And I think I'm in one of those cycles now where I just haven't drank anything or done anything in 3 or 4 years. I don't need it, and I kind of have come to terms with like I'm never going to fit in, so alcohol's not going to make it any better or worse.
Love that.
Cheers
Yeah, that's
to
a lot of
that.
my background with that stuff for sure. And in the like as you mentioned, I was in like a vegan straight edge band, so it was like one extra
What
tier of
extra
just
step?
bullshit self righteousness. you know?
Oh, man.
No, I think that's so like important for people to hear though that like there's not just this one track way to live your lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like I think you put it beautifully that it comes in cycles. So yeah, thanks for sharing all of that.
And I think it's a lot of us just it's about being responsible. I see a lot of people having like a resurgence of like pretending like they're in high school or college and drinking like shotgunning beers because some country musician told them to or whatever, and it's like that makes me angry personally. Like I still kind of like it's funny like I'm not straight edge, but that old like demon rises up in me. I'm like, nah, I'm gonna fucking punch you. Like,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't, but still, it's like I don't want to be around people that are drinking, especially when I'm not, and I hate the culture.
Mm.
So
Yeah. But Mara, you and I were even just talking about this like yesterday about, being misunderstood and like being okay with like being odd. Like
right,
that's okay. And sometimes it takes a long time to get there, but just you sharing your story and these elements, it's like giving other people permission to be like, yeah, fuck off. Like I don't want to do that and that's okay.
yeah. And again, I don't want to be mean to anybody either.
Yeah.
Like each their own, right? Like
Yeah.
this is just where I'm at personally, but like most of my family still does. About half and half. Some drink on the weekends or do whatever, and that's their thing, and we all kind of navigate around it, so it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Renee and I were talking about the concept of like, why do we feel like we are misunderstood? And like how kind of you use the phrase self-righteous a little while ago. And I'm just like, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people actually feel the same way, but for some reason, um, I don't know. I guess that's what I am starting to really love about this podcast and hearing, having guests like you on here is kind of hearing how we navigate that story and narrative that we have for ourselves that like we don't fit in or we're a little bit weird, and it's like, okay, but the person next to me feels the same way and the person next to them also feels the same way, so like if we really do have this shared kind of like, I don't even know what you would call it, like oddness, I guess, that maybe it's really not so odd after all. But the more we can be transparent about how we feel weird sometimes or may not fit in all the time, it gives other people the permission to like let their freak flag fly, like, like, come on.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of coping with insecurity in one way or another. Some people do it with substances, some people do it with writing or surfing or whatever it may be, right? Like we're all doing it differently. um I've just found this way to work for me, and some people's like, nah, I've got to numb everything, and whatever. And I get it, right? Like I definitely understand it. I'm thankful I didn't get sucked into it any deeper than I did personally. Like when I was drinking, my dogs are body slamming each other behind me, so I'm sorry.
It's amazing.
So
Yeah, I mean, we usually like to ask, or we're getting into the rhythm of asking our guest what and how you are living life differently, and how would you answer that at
it's
this
funny.
point?
Yeah, like I think I'm just snarky. Um, there was a scene. I don't know if you guys have seen the Righteous Gemstones. They filmed it around where you guys are. There was a scene
Yes.
in the last season where one of the guys' father came to a wedding party and somebody offered him a beer and he said, "Fuck you, I don't drink," and he slapped it out of their hand. I'm like, I like that. That's where I'm at. But no, but no. I think personally, like I don't. I don't need again as far as living life differently. I don't need to social drink. I don't need to do things like that personally to belong, right? Like I think I've come a way to where I can own my insecurity, my whatever, in a way where I don't need that thing to cope. Although, as I mentioned earlier, like it's a super stressful time right now in my life, and I'm like, if I were to ever do it again, which and again, I'm not saying I never will drink again either. Like I definitely am leaving it open. Now would be the time. It feels like, but it's the wrong time, right? Again, like I don't want to
Mm.
use it as a coping tool to run away from problems. And I think that's if anything that I've done differently over the last handful of years is I'm trying to face things head on, as painful as they may be, with as little help as possible. And I'm just gritting through, and I and it turns into some good articles or some good poetry or whatever, I hope. Um, but yeah, I'm just basically raw dogging life right now. So that's where I'm at.
I think we're all in similar boats, just like with how life is and being on. Like I can completely I feel you on that. I feel you on
Yeah.
that. Like sometimes it's not this is the part and the times when it does test those things. Like it's not even really I mean maybe it's a little willpower too, but this is when you ask yourselves those questions of like, oh shit, this is when I usually, and you even said it, like, this is the time that I would usually reach for the thing that kind of masks or numbs. But to hear that you're like redirecting in a creative sense is a really cool tool to be able to tell others that like okay like instead of reaching for that what I normally would do facing it head on and then you kind of find different layers about yourself too.
Right. I think too, it's also trying to find community, trying to find support. Um, Kind of with the things that I do, like you said before, Dead Reckoning Collective, they are my publisher, but they're also like a community. They've built a network of people where it's like an all ships rise mentality, right? So there's so many people in there that I'm legitimately friends with as a result of this like weird creative thing that we all do. And there's some other organizations called like Patrol Base Abate, which is a veteran organization. We do a book club. Um, there are things like that that kind of promote connectiveness, and I feel like if you're not feeling alone and isolating, you're less likely to kind of dive deeper into that, despair or whatever that would lead you to using alcohol or drugs or whatever it may be. Kind of having like knowing that you're accountable, I think it is helpful as well.
Yeah, community. It's huge. Yeah. I find it really interesting, like the juxtaposition between like being a war vet and also like a poet. And having those, like something that's like seen as like so hyper masculine. And then like, something like writing poetry that can be um I mean, that's like straight from the heart, and I relate in those ways because I also dabble in writing poetry and have hosted local poetry shows here in Charleston, Charleston Poetry Fest with Marcus Amaker. Um, and so I'm really curious to hear like how that came about. Like I am
Yeah.
really intrigued by that.
I think that's one of the cool things too. Like if you really look at history, right? Like a lot of the poets that a lot of us were inspired by were like men's men. Like I don't know
Mhm.
when it became like Asheville drum circles or whatever, but like before, like if you read the guys from World War I, like I think Wilfred Owen is one. Like he has one called Dulce et Decorum Est. That poem will mess you up. Like I
Yeah.
cry every time I read it aloud. Like it's brutal. It's talking about trench warfare in World War I. Like, but it's the rawest, realest stuff. And then you kind of fast forward to today, like again with the Dead Reckoning guys, you got guys like Leo Jenkins, who's in the Ranger Regiment, or these other guys that were just what I would consider like just badass guys, And we have women too that are like doing this as well, so it's not just limited to the dudes, but it is weird that like it's for a long time it felt weird to say that I write poetry, even though I've done it longer than I've done anything else. But it has that weird like emasculating aspect to it, where everybody just thinks you're just like snapping your fingers and doing whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I like it because it's like you're able to distill stories and emotions down to like their core value and get to the heart of things, and it's a raw nerve. At least that's the style that I have. Growing up, I read a lot of Robert Frost and Poe, and like all of us, I'm sure, did, right? But like, I really took a lot away from that, like speaking to nature, the beauty of the world around you, and then with the guys like Wilfred Owen and Auden and these other guys from World War I, it's like just the gnarliness of war. But they were able to get to the heart of it. Even going further back to like Dante, way back. Like I used to read Dante's Inferno, which is basically a narrative poem from like the medieval time. And if you want to write metal lyrics, like just
Take
FYI,
an excerpt from
just read some of that, and you'll learn words, despair and all just
yeah.
all these things.
Yeah, that like
Um,
cuts you to your core.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I spent high school, just reading stuff like that and being like, I'm gonna make
Mm,
this a song that we can beat people up to.
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just really intrigued by it because, like you said, like uh, the man's man, have always written poetry. Or, and so at what point did this like narrative around like, and I'm relating this in my own realm of the type of the dating scene, actually, like if I'm totally transparent, of just like there seems to be this divide of like men and the maturity level when it comes to emotional intelligence. And I'm kind of seeing parallels between like it's like when did it become this narrative that like having emotions and expressing emotion like for men is seen as like emasculating, when
Like
it's
weak.
like that's like the most masculine thing you can fucking do. you know
Mm.
Right. I feel like as a history student, it looks like the 50s and 60s, like the beatniks and the hippies, is when it started to kind of shift, right? Like we started, and you think about the nature of like warfare then too, right? Like we went from like a galvanized country fighting World War II to like Korea kind of got swept under the rug, and then everybody was protesting Vietnam, and kind of from there, like ideals and whatever else of the modern masculine man kind of started getting, I don't know, it shifted, right? Like, and we started being more decentralized as far as not unified against the war and all these other things. So I feel like maybe some of that, like, I don't know, like it helped shape the narrative, right? Of this isn't what guys do anymore. Like you're supposed to just shut up and suck it up and drive on and do the thing or whatever. I don't know. It is interesting because like you go back a couple of generations and it was like all these gentlemen, right? Like
Hmm.
legit dudes were doing this, but now it's guys that have like, you know, I don't know, like probably guys like I used to be, like vegan weirdos, just you know. Um, but
Uh,
I don't know. Like it's interesting though. There definitely has been a culture shift for sure.
Yeah.
do you feel like it's hard? Because I think you mentioned like, you've always written and you've always written poetry. So do you find yourself really leading into kind of that title now with like no fucks given? Or does it still feel a little like,
It still feels
ooh,
weird.
yeah.
It is funny too, like with the Dead Reckoning thing. It's like we talk. Keith Dow, my editor, he's the co-founder of Dead Reckoning, and we were talking about like having them make a T-shirt that says something like, our writers can beat you in a fist fight or something like, or our poets or whatever. But yeah, I would consider myself a writer. Like I'll say I'm a poet and stuff like this when I'm trying to promote a poetry book, but I just lump it all in together with writing. Like I don't distinguish one versus the other because I'm writing a poem today, I'm writing an article, essay tomorrow, I'm writing a narrative, whatever, trying to write fiction the next day. So just to me, I'm just a writer. But I probably should own the poetry thing too, for sure.
I mean, yeah, lump it in there for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What like if someone's listening to this podcast, and it definitely sounds like I'm just taking bits and pieces of your story, and I know there's a million other details that make up your life experience, but what I am sensing for sure that there's a lot of courage behind what you have done and what you choose to do and how you continue to show up in this world. What piece of advice would you give someone who is listening, who's like, on the edge of like going after something that they really want to do, and like kind of, not turning their back to themselves and numbing out in whatever ways, what has really helped you along?
I think I would say like stop aspiring and just start doing, right? Like it's easy to want to do something. It's hard as hell to like show up and do it. Like one thing I've personally tried to do as a discipline, I put out an article on Substack every Friday. They're not all ballpark, like knock them out of the park articles, right? But like for me, I'm looking at it less as an analytic of like, I'm going to go viral with this one, and more of like, I showed up, I wrote an article, I had discipline, and I did it. I said I was going to do it and I did it. And out of that, I've become a better writer, right? Like, again, I'm not killing it doing those, but there's a handful of people that enjoy them. But it's for me, right? At the end of the day, like, I'm doing this to invest in myself and be a better version of myself because I had to show up and I had to do it. As far as writing goes, there's no trick. Like, the only way to get better at writing is to write. And I would venture to say it's with a lot of other things. You know, I'm a photographer too. My camera is very dusty. You know, I took a handful of pictures a few months ago, and it was or a few weeks ago, and it was a little bit more challenging than it used to be. I pulled it off, but like, it's muscle memory. All these things atrophy.
Mm.
Even thinking back to the military, like all these guys that got out of the military, you know, I've been home from Iraq almost 20 years, 19 years. And to think that I could do anything that I could do then, I can't do any of it. But, you know, most of these guys are like, I'm a patriot. I can still do whatever. Like, brother, you can't.
You
Like,
can't.
if you're not
Brother, you
practicing
can't.
or if you're not doing, you know, it's with anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
Brother,
I
sit
think
down.
it's yeah. So if somebody's on the fence, I would just simply say believe in yourself and invest in yourself, but like, get moving. Like, you're not going to get any better wishing you were doing it. So just start. It's going to suck. You know, every first draft is bullshit anyway. So just get something on the page and keep going. Editing is where it happens. You know, just getting it out of your head, right?
Mm, get it out of your head. Yes. You know something, I don't know if you all relate to this at all, but I can just doom scroll, you know, on TikTok or something.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if I am learning about something that I want to do, it almost makes me feel like I am doing that thing. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
such a trap because it's like, no, like I'm not actually doing that thing. I'm watching other people fucking do the thing I want to
Dude.
do. But by
Yes.
watching it, it's like the dopamine is just like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing it." It's like, "No, you're not."
Yeah, I can't remember who told me this. It was either like one of my coaches or I saw somebody post something about this, and it was like you can sit and read and learn about whatever topic it is and get to like the depths of it and read like 200 something books, whatever it is about it. But until you actually go out there and do the fucking thing,
Yeah.
you're not going to be an expert at it. You're just
Yeah.
not.
It's
Yeah.
just theory. It's theory
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah,
How you put it into
exactly.
practice, I mean, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's kind of
Totally.
funny though, like something's clicking for me right now because I was reflecting on how I I love hearing people's stories and how lived experience resonates with me so much more than reading like a textbook. And it's always been like that for me. But it's almost as if I love talking to people and hearing their stories just as much. It's like the same thing as when I'm scrolling. It's like I'm living through other people, not necessarily like doing it myself. So that's kind of interesting to think about. But I'm
it's
like,
easier too. I find myself reading a lot of memoirs and stuff like that. Like, I enjoy them, and then I'm like, why would I write one? Who's going to read that? But it's interesting, right? Like, I'm with you on that. Like, I'll sit there and read other people's stories and look into things and want to hear what you're talking about. All the while, I'm like, I haven't done anything to move me forward at all.
Yes, you're like, "Wait, shit, what did I do today?
Right?
What am
yes.
I doing?"
Doom scrolling, it'll get you. Like, I read a ton of books, but lately, because I've been a little stressed out, I'll just sit on my front porch and I'll realize like the book is sitting next to me, and I'm just scrolling like dumb shit. Like,
Isn't that so bizarre? It's like such its own form of numbing out where you're
yeah,
like, you look up and it's like 30 minutes later and you're like, "Oh,
It's
shit."
like the ultimate time suck, and it's so quick to just disassociate. It's like, yeah, the addiction is real,
yeah, the
and
dopamine hit from that. Yeah,
Well, and that's like a perfect segue to my next question about like your emphasis on nature and getting out in nature and how that's affected maybe how you wrote your the toad in a glass jar and how did that maybe affect how you wrote it or how do you incorporate getting out in nature? Because I know that's something that you're pretty enthusiastic about.
Right. Yeah. Most of my life has been this weird, dude out in the woods. I mean, for a number of years, I chased this dream of like having a television show, being a crocodile hunter style host. I came real close and never officially landed the deal, kind of so to speak. But like we
Wait,
made
hold on. Pause right there. You were gonna be a host for a crocodile hunter show?
just I there's a number of years where like I produced my own show called Catching Creation. And then out of that, I would have these production companies reach out to me and be like, "Would you like to have a show on Animal Planet?" I'm like, yeah, like that's only what I've wanted my entire life." And
Amazing.
they never came to fruition. I think I signed with 3 or
Mm.
4 different companies that were pitching me across town. And I think the prevailing sentiment from like Nat Geo Wild, Animal Planet, and all these people that I heard after the fact was like, but why is he in the woods? Like he's not an expert. He's like on paper, right? Like, what is this dude doing? And I'm like,
Rude.
I felt like Brian Fellows from Saturday Night Live. I'm like, he's an enthusiastic young man with the love for God's creation. Like, but
That's enough.
yeah, but you know,
Interesting.
it is what it is. But like, I still do those things. I still post videos occasionally and do that. But yeah, you're right. Nature for me it's been a through line as well. I grew up, raised by a single mom, and we would, my brother and sister and I, we would get dropped off to like my grandmother's, and we would just explore the woods, and we would catch toads and put them in literal glass jars, and we would catch box turtles and lizards and whatever else, and just that was kind of part of. I mean, growing up in the Southeast too, it's like part of my cultural upbringing. Most Southern storytellers are going to tell you stories about snakes they found, or all this other kind of natural history stuff or whatever, or at least in my family. Um, and so I just grew to love those things, and so it's always been a deep part of who I am. I studied environmental biology in college for 3 years until I got deployed to Iraq. Came back, did a semester more. I was at the time working in a research lab studying bats. So like I was pretty heavily invested in that career path, and then had a shift, went to Bible college, have a degree in practical ministry. For a number of years, I combined biology and natural history, and traveled the Southeast and brought snakes and frogs to churches and talked to kids about Jesus. Like, so I've just had
What
these
a
like
pivot.
weird lives, but I've always been able to like carry things with me, right? Like, so with the writing, like nature's always going to find its way in there. Like, there's going to be faith at some level, I'm sure, in some of them, whether it be jaded or otherwise. So again, like it's always weird for me to like disentangle myself from all these like layers of past lives, but they all find their way into the makeup of who I am, and then you see it kind of on the page in most cases too. I don't know if I answered the question because I kind of
Yeah,
blacked
totally.
out.
Yeah.
Well, how did you catch your lizards?
Um,
How'd you
I
do that?
mean,
Because I
now
want to
I'm.
say because I want to just tell him how I used to do it when I was growing up. So I want to know from his perspective how I used to catch his.
I mean, we would just sneak up and
Just grab
just
them.
grab them. I mean,
Just
with
yank.
everything. But
Okay.
yeah, we. I mean, I
Why,
used to be
Nate?
pretty
What kind of fucked
fast.
up shit would you do?
Yeah, now I'm curious. Where's the method?
So my uncle, so we would go visit my family out in California, and my grandparents had this like amazing garden like in the backyard where they had like raised flower beds and stuff like that, and like all the gravel and all that shit where we thought it was like lava and all that fun stuff. And my uncle would take a long like stick and put twine, like copper twine at the end, and do like a little like noose thing at the end. And so we would hold it out in front of the lizards, and they would just run straight into them, so then we could like pick them up, and then we would like release them and stuff like that. So
People, scientists do that. We did that in Florida. Me and a buddy. We went down there to look for invasive wildlife, and one of the scientists that I interviewed, first documentary I ever tried to film, complete failure. Um, Ironically, like I lost all the tapes because I gave them to an editor and just got them all back 18 years later, like last year.
Whoa.
But
Whoa.
it's still garbage, but it's cool to have it. But one of the scientists we interviewed was like, "Oh yeah, if you go to this middle school and you park on the corner and get a kid's fishing rod, you reach out the window and you can catch these lizards called agamas, which I think they're an African lizard that's wild in Florida." And we
what?
tried it, But for me, I couldn't do it. I had to run stuff down. Like I have a lizard in my basement that we call it in Florida. That is literally the fastest lizard, Mexican spiny tailed iguana, like supposedly the fastest one on land. Your boy chased him down. I don't know how,
My
because this was
God.
like 5 years ago, but it was a baby, and I tired it out on a seawall and brought her home. Turns out they're the worst pets you could ever get. Like, don't do it, but she's cool. She's mine.
Whoa. That's awesome. Very cool.
Oh my gosh. I grew up with a lot of brothers and um an uncle is who thinks he's the crocodile hunter himself. Like just wild, so growing up they'd always be like, "You want to go snake hunting? You want to go?" Like, and I was just there for the ride, but a lot of memories of all the critters and creatures, which is kind of interesting because I feel like when I was young, I was very immersed in that. And then there was a big chunk of time in my life where I was very disconnected from like anything that's not humans. Like it was just like a lot of people interaction, not a lot of nature or like other creatures. And I'm the past few years I've come back to this place of just being in complete awe of everything, like and I think a big part of that has been um the journey of unpacking the layers of, the fog that comes with numbing out in certain ways and kind of just expanding and opening up more and seeing, like my little dog. I'm just like, dude, he's barking right now. He's driving me freaking nuts. Bad timing, but like looking at him, I'm like, you're like a little fucking soul. Like you're just like
Yeah.
this like little creature, and you have your whole world, and it's so cool. I'm gonna mute
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. No worries.
It
Yeah.
is.
I mean, yeah, go ahead, Stan.
No, I was gonna say, like, I find too, like, in seasons when I'm stressed out, the one place I should be is in nature, hiking or whatever. And for whatever reason, it's like the hardest thing for me to go do. I mean, I had to like force myself this week, actually, the first time in a long time. I went to it's called a vernal pool. It's like a temporary wetland that develops this time of year, and salamanders breed in them. And a buddy of mine and I went, and we'd canceled like 3 other times because both of us would get off work and be like, I
I
don't
just
want
don't.
to do this today. Like, I just want to take a nap, or I just want to not think about anything. But we're like,
Yeah.
all right, we got to do it. And now, it's better for it. It's like that wonder, the awe that she was talking about. Like, I need that. And I think we need that as humans, that connectedness to nature. And again, for me as a person of faith, like in nature, I feel like it's easy for me to point back to the divine and be like, yeah, we're insignificant, but like not in a bad way, or not in a whatever, but just like, wow, like all this stuff is amazing. And the further I get away from that, sometimes it seems like that's when I start cycling or spiraling or whatever even more. So I always have to remind myself, like, hey, dum dum, get in the woods.
Yes. Yeah. Do you feel like the connection, like when you do get out in nature, like do you feel more present and just different when you come back? Like do you get kind of like a surge or any kind of like energetic feelings after going into nature?
Definitely. I think too, like it like you were saying, it clears the fog, right? Like it,
Yeah.
and I think that's social media. I think that's a big deal, or just being so connected on our phones. Like if you're not doing that, you're disconnected, like physically, and you're able to be present. Um, it's so much better. I mean, I remember a few years ago I was filming at a Martian town, and I just remember like focusing on these gnats. I think there's a poem in the book even about it. Like I've read so long. I've worked on that thing for so long. Like I can't remember what's in it and what we threw away, but I'm pretty sure there's one in there about gnats, right? Like, but I just remember like being in awe and like watching these little tiny bugs like swarm over the marsh and being like, I'm about to cry. Like it's cool. Like this is a whole other world that I don't know anything about, but it's beautiful. It looks like they're dancing. It's like I wouldn't have seen that watching it on TV or seeing it any other way, but like being present in that moment from a pest, right? Like, but again, it was like being available to the wonder and the awe that surrounds all of us. Like it's there. We just forget it and we don't access it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. For sure.
Yeah.
I
I'm
wanna
curious.
Mara, is there yeah, go ahead. Go ahead,
I was
Mara.
just gonna say, do you have your book near? Would you wanna read one of your poems?
Yeah. Hell
Uh,
yeah.
I have I have to look and see. Yeah, I can flip through and find something, I'm sure. But it's a weird book. Because I've so the way I the way I've broken it up is like there's it's broken into four phases, right? So I broke it into almost like life cycles of a toad. So a lot of it's like early childhood, and then it goes into war. Here's one that is appropriate, kind of. I just the first one I flipped to, but it's called Lizards, but it's not about lizards. So I'll read this one real quick because it's kind of a fun one. Our leaders are probably lizards, slimy reptilians that slither. True intentions like chameleons, cold blooded Machiavellian. Maybe they're more like skinks. I bet they're like skinks. What do you think? Hiding in holes right under feet, awaiting an ambush for something to eat. Perhaps they're more like monitors, truly undeserving of that moniker. Forked tongues with a throaty hiss, a mouthful of lies so venomous. No, they're just poor, misguided men, preying on the weak, abiding in sin. I wish they were more like lizards. At least then we could kill the critters. That's a it's kind of a weird one, but like I like it.
How
Um,
appropriate though. That's so
Yeah.
great. Oh my
and then here's a
gosh.
I'll read one more. This one's about childhood and kind of about what we were talking about. It's called Growing Up Wild. Um, I grew up wild, feral, and free, long before the tendrils of technology. My hours spent deep within wooded glens, my brother, my sister, my only friends. Frogs, snakes, and box turtles we'd race, knee deep in creeks and other such muddy places. I miss the days we spent before we had reflective faces.
Mm. Mm.
So good.
Right, the
Yeah.
snaps.
Fucking mic drop, dude. Oh
Snap,
my
But
snap.
god. It's so
it's
special.
a fun book again. And then there's like other poems in there about like suicide and what the
The whole
trappings of coming
spectrum.
home from war and living with dissonance and
Yeah.
um so I have to curate like what I read where,
Sure.
that's what it's been the ongoing joke where I'm like, like talking to my dad or whoever about the book. I'm like, yeah, I was like, I'm gonna read you guys a poem about a June bug, then one about blowing my brains out. Like I
Yeah.
just
Right. Right.
this is the spectrum of what you will get, and you're gonna hate it or love it or somewhere in the middle, and it'll make you feel something.
Something. Well, that's the thing. It just sounds so authentic to you. Like that is your representation of your perspective on how your life has been and what you've lived through. And that authenticity is something that can't be mimicked, but can be admired. So thank you for sharing that. I feel like we had an exclusive. So
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
awesome.
It's funny too because we were talking about memoir earlier. I didn't write this in that lens, but after the fact, like the editor wrote his introduction to the book, and he said it was a poetic memoir, and I didn't think of it as that when I was writing it. But how could it not be? Like when I looked back at it, and even the way that I structured it, it was like, oh, this is like my entire life, more or less spread out through triumph and tragedy. But like I didn't think about, again, who would want to read my memoir, but like effectively here is a version of it, right? Like here is a real raw nerve and as honest as I can be to a fault. And again, it's weird.
Yeah.
We like
Love it.
weird.
Love it. And yeah, it makes me think that like, is there anything we can like say or write that doesn't have the like the perspective of what we have gone through, like our own personal life experience, like
Mm.
that's going to project through in some way,
Right.
so it's interesting to think that like, yeah, this isn't a memoir, but then you look back on it and you're like, uh, yes, this is very
Yeah.
much so a reflection of all of my life experiences and
It's
how
even
I
funny. Like
perceive them.
I wrote children's books, first, like that's the first thing I ever wrote and published. And the first one I wrote was uh, called "The Not So Ordinary Journey of Todd the Toad," about like an albino toad, which is it's funny, but when I got done with it, it's in effect turned into like people like, "Oh, this is about bullying." I'm like, "Yes, it is, sure." And then my mom's like, "That's about you, isn't it?" I'm like, actually, yeah, I guess I am." And then in this book, somebody's like, "So you're the toad?" Because I like took the picture, like holding it with my knuckle tattoos. And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I am the forever the toad." So that's me. I also have a basement full of them as well. But
Oh
Oh
my
yeah,
my
god.
gosh. Forever Toad.
Forever
yeah,
Toad.
Your new
Sick.
handle.
yeah,
My gosh.
Well,
Wow.
I could literally sit here and talk to you like all day. This has been such a like pleasure and such a lovely conversation. I really just appreciate you taking your time to share your story with us. And Mara, do you have any other questions before we wrap up? I mean, I have tons in my head, but like
I know. I know. Well, I was just wondering, like, is there anything else you want to share with listeners? Whether it's your audience, our audience, just kind of about like embracing our authentic selves and showing up, like who we are to not be so afraid.
right. Yeah, it's funny. A buddy of mine, he teaches a creative writing class for vets, and he keeps quoting another friend of ours that's a novelist named David Joy. And he says, in order to be a good writer, and I think this applies to life too, but he says you've got to be fearless and vulnerable. And I think that's what we all need to be, right? You need to be fearless and vulnerable, and I think that's where your strength is. Uh, and so again, Worth Parker is the one that quotes it from David Joy, so they're attributing to them. But I think that that's like a pretty good mantra, right? Like there's like being fearless and vulnerable. It helps you be real, and I think in a world where like we're putting on our best face for social media, we're putting on filters and everything else. Like I think seeing kind of warts and all sometimes is more of a refreshing thing than seeing someone well put together. And I'm hoping that that's what people get from the collective kind of things that I put out, whether it be the videos that we put out occasionally that are just they're just me being passionate about whatever it is, and it's not perfect because I don't know why I'm in the woods, right? Like I can't pinpoint it. And the same thing with the writing stuff. The poetry is, I'm not classically trained in anything. I'm teaching myself writing. Like I have no business teaching writing, but here I am. I also teach creative writing for veterans through a nonprofit. But again, it's just about being authentic to who you are and saying yes to opportunities. Uh, I don't know. I think that's the best thing I could say is just be available and be open to what's around the next corner.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I definitely see like the fearless aspect behind that of like going for opportunities, like, being fearless in putting yourself out there. Um how I guess is my very last question because I think this can be so nuanced. What does it mean to be vulnerable?
Uh, I think, and it's also funny, like the fearless thing. Like I'm scared of shit, like all the time. Like, like my anxiety level is usually like a 9 out of a 10. So being vulnerable, I think is being honest to that and not shying away from it, right? Like I could put on this whole macho bravado bullshit and be like, no, I'm good, I'm tough, I'm whatever, I've done this, I've done that. I'm like, dude, I'm a broken dude trying to figure it out. And like I think as long as I'm honest to who I am and what I am, I'm okay with it. Like you're not going to say anything to me that I've not said to myself, So I think
Mm,
as long as I'm not putting on a front, um, I can't be hurt by anything. And I have to remind myself of that too when I'm like being insecure about, like this book, like how it's going to be received or whatever, right? Like it doesn't matter. I've done it. Like it's done. Moving on to the next thing and on to the next. I think it's part of the journey for all of us. It's just like all having these mile marker moments, celebrating a win, but don't live in that. Keep moving.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Love
you.
that.
Honesty, the transparency. Yeah, so many different like facets of vulnerability. It's like that's a big concept and so many. Yeah, it's like just letting letting ourselves be human and be seen,
Mm.
as that. So, yeah, thank you so much for chatting. It's been really cool to just get to know little parts of your story, and I'm sure there's so many more. So yeah, hopefully we can get to continue to, follow along on your journey and read your books and learn more, and keep going.
Thank you guys so much for inviting me on here. I do appreciate the opportunity and letting me speak and again be a weirdo. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Fuck yeah, dude. Love it. Well, we will be sure to link everything where you can find the book, where you can find Stan, all the socials, all those good things. Again, Stan, honored. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Until next time,
Yeah.
guys. Bye.